I took the ranger job because I needed to disappear for a while. A stretch of forest, a radio, solitude. That was the sales pitch. After a messy breakup and the burnout of city life, it sounded perfect. My posting, a stretch of the Appalachian Trail near Blood Mountain. The name made me laugh when I first heard it, some dramatic relic of old settler tales. I arrived at the ranger station in late August. The trees were still full, the cicadas buzzed loud, and the mountain air had that sharp, clean bite that made your lungs feel newer than they were. The station sat about 30 minutes off the main trailhead, accessible by a dirt road that looked like it hadn't seen gravel in years. I was alone when I got there, except for one other ranger who was just finishing his shift. His name was Owen. Mid-50s, heavy-set, thick beard gone half gray. He barely looked up from his thermos as I walked in, duffel in hand. "You're the new guy?" he asked, already sounding tired of me. "Yeah. Name's Mason." He didn't shake my hand, just motioned to the bunk in the corner, then handed me a weathered folder, its corners bent, stained with old coffee and something darker. "Read those tonight. Seriously, I know you city types think this shit is all campfire stories, but we don't write rules unless someone dies breaking them." That made me pause. I offered a half laugh, trying to match the deadpan tone I thought he was using. Owen didn't laugh. He left 20 minutes later. No small talk. Just pointed at the backup generator, showed me where the rifle was stored, and muttered something about the next shift change being in a week. As his truck rumbled off down the winding dirt road, I was alone. That was when I opened the folder. There were a few standard things inside: emergency protocols, radio frequencies, a trail map with several spots marked in red ink, but tucked near the back was a single typewritten sheet of paper. No header. Just a title: Rules of the Ridge. If you hear classical music coming from the woods between the hours of 3:13 a.m. and sunrise, don't follow it. 2. If the woods go unnaturally silent, make no noise and hide. He is near. 3. If you get a call on the radio from a voice you don't recognize, don't answer it. 4. Be attentive to the red zone markers updated on the map at the ranger station. They are hunting grounds. 5. Sometimes the old abandoned tower on top of Blood Mountain will have a single candlelight in the window at midnight. If you see it, return to the station immediately and wait for it to go out. 6. Lost campers who stray too far from the trail require at minimum 2 rangers to initiate search and rescue. Do not look for them alone. 7. If you hear knocking outside the ranger station between the hours of 2 and 3 a.m., do not answer it. Do not look at the security cameras. It does not like to be seen. At first I thought it was a joke, some local tradition to haze the new guy. I even flipped the page over, expecting a winking gotcha or maybe a smiley face. Nothing. But what got to me wasn't just the content, it was the tone. This wasn't written like folklore. It was clinical, direct, and deeply, deeply serious. That night, I stood out on the station's wraparound deck, looking into the endless dark tree line. The moon was a waning sliver. Every now and then a breeze would rustle the pines, and I'd tell myself I was being ridiculous. Still, I didn't sleep well. The woods had a sound to them I couldn't explain, layers of noise and silence that felt too intentional, like something listening. The first few days were quiet. I walked the trails, logged fallen branches, checked campgrounds. I saw deer, I saw a bobcat, normal stuff. I'd even marked off one of the red zones on the map with a sarcastic little post-it, Monster's Lair. By the 5th night, I'd almost forgotten the rules. Then came the 6th. It was 3:24 a.m. when I woke up. No reason, no nightmare, just awake. I sat in bed for a moment, groggy, listening to the usual forest chorus. Crickets. Owls. Wind in the trees. Then it stopped. All of it. Not like it faded, not like it slowed, it stopped. A silence so thick it rang in my ears. I sat up, heart racing. That was when I remembered rule number 2. If the woods go unnaturally silent, make no noise and hide. He is near. I told myself it was a coincidence. I even stood, walked to the door, looked out through the window. Nothing, just darkness. But I didn't open the door. I didn't make a sound. Instead, I sat back on the bunk, pulled the thin blanket over me like a kid afraid of ghosts, and waited. The silence lasted exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Then, the forest came back, slowly at first. A single chirp, then 2. Then the breeze again, the rustle, the natural hum of life returning. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, I pulled the folder back out, reading the rules again. Not laughing this time, just memorizing. The morning after the silence, I didn't tell anyone. Not that there was anyone to tell. The ranger station didn't exactly come with a bustling crew. Owen was gone. No hikers had checked in that week. The radio was quiet. It was just me and the trees. But something had changed. You know that feeling when you're being watched? That low, cold itch between your shoulder blades? I couldn't shake it. Every step I took along the trails felt like an invitation for something I couldn't see to get a little closer. I started carrying the station rifle, even on basic patrols. Regulations didn't require it unless there was reported predator activity, but I figured I could stretch that definition to whatever the hell stalks the woods in dead silence at 3 a.m. That day, I went out to check a trail camera about 3 miles east of the station, Camp Loop Delta. The camera had gone offline 2 nights ago, but the feed hadn't saved anything unusual. I assumed weather, a branch, maybe a curious raccoon. The hike in was uneventful. The sun was hot, the bugs were relentless, and I nearly convinced myself the Silent Woods incident was just a dream, until I reached the tree with the camera. The mount was snapped clean off, snapped, not unscrewed, and the camera itself lay face down in the dirt, lens shattered. Around it, no tracks, no claw marks, just an oddly shaped patch of soil, almost like someone had knelt there. Heavy, sunken. I radioed it in on the standard channel. Station, this is Ranger Mason. Cameras down at Delta. Looks like impact damage. No obvious signs of animal activity. Over. There was a long pause, then static. Then, that's not where it happened. The voice was male, breathless, strained, and definitely not Owen. I froze. Station, repeat. Who is this? Over. No response. Just more static, then a faint click like someone slowly hanging up a phone. I switched channels, tried the backup frequency. Nothing. When I returned to the station that evening, I checked the radio logs. No transmission recorded at that time. I thought about the rules again. Rule number 3. If you get a call on the radio from a voice you don't recognize, don't answer it. Too late for that. That night, I sat in the station's small kitchen, staring at the red zone map, trying to work out if "that's not where it happened" meant anything. Maybe it was just interference. A cross signal. Maybe some hiker with a rogue radio screwing around. That made more sense than the alternative. Still, I went to bed with the rifle leaning against the wall and my boots on. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the first hiker showed up. She was young, early 20s, solo, big pack, confident stride. Her name was Jess. She had a permit, trail map, all her paperwork, just passing through for a few days on her way toward Neil Gap. She noticed the rifle slung over my shoulder and grinned. Expecting bears? I smiled. Didn't say it. But I was starting to wish it was bears. Before she left, I handed her a copy of the trail map with the red zones marked in Sharpie. Stay out of these areas, I told her. We've had reports of aggressive wildlife. Stick to the trail and check in at the next station. Jess gave me a thumbs up. Got it. Thanks, Ranger. She disappeared into the trees, and I watched her go with a tight knot forming in my gut. I wanted to tell her more, wanted to tell her everything. But who the hell would believe me? That evening, just past dusk, I heard the radio crackle again. It started faint, static, then fragments of sound, like someone turning a dial on an old radio and catching ghost broadcasts. I didn't touch it. Then the voice came back. Help! Down by the creek, please. Can't see. It was Jess. Or at least, it sounded like Jess. But her voice was off, too slow, like someone playing back a recording at the wrong speed. There was a low hum behind her words like insects buzzing inside the mic. I turned off the radio. Sweat slicked the back of my neck. Don't answer it. That's what the rules said. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. When I turned the radio back on, silence. No signal. Just as I was about to walk away, it crackled one last time. You should have come when I called. I slept with the lights on that night. Not that it helped. Around 2:47 a.m., I heard something outside. A faint tap, tap, tap against the station's door. Not knocking, more like the sound of fingertips brushing against the wood. I didn't move. Didn't look at the cameras. Not yet. That was rule number 7, and I wasn't ready to break another one. Not again. The next morning, I checked the trail log. Jess never signed in at Neil Gap. I called the ranger station there, voice flat, trying not to sound worried. Solo hiker, early 20s, came through yesterday afternoon. She should have reached your post before nightfall. No one had seen her. I didn't mention the radio message. Didn't mention that I'd heard her voice calling for help, warped and slowed like something was wearing it like a mask. Instead, I checked the weather report. Clear skies, good visibility, no excuse to delay a search. But I didn't request backup. I was already halfway out the door before I remembered Rule 6. Lost campers who stray too far from the trail require at minimum 2 rangers to initiate search and rescue. Do not look for them alone. I stood at the edge of the forest for a long time. Wind moved through the trees like breath. The trail forked east and south. Jess would have taken the east route, toward the creek, toward the part of the map where the red zone line slithered like an infected vein. I should have radioed Owen. Waited for another ranger. Followed protocol. Instead, I broke the rule. The sun was high by the time I reached the creek bed. The water was low this time of year, barely a whisper over the rocks. The woods here were denser, quieter. The sound of birds thinned as I walked, until even my footsteps seemed swallowed by the trees. I found the first sign of her, maybe a mile downstream, a red ribbon tied to a branch at eye level. Standard hiker trail marker. Jess was smart. She knew how to stay visible. But something about the ribbon felt wrong. It fluttered too slowly, like the air was heavy or reluctant to move. I walked on. Then I found the boot, but I had a bad feeling I'd see it soon. That evening, I forced myself to go through the security footage from the past 2 nights. I avoided 2 to 3 a.m., no sense tempting fate, but I reviewed the hours around Jess's supposed disappearance. There was nothing, just static, not even motion in the woods, like the forest didn't want to be seen. Around 9 p.m., the radio buzzed again. Ranger station, help me. Jess again, too clear, too slow. Like her voice was dripping through something wet and alive. I turned the volume down and waited. Eventually, the signal cut out. I checked the trail map. The red zone had grown again, now covering the entire east ridge leading up to Blood Mountain. And this time, there was a word scribbled inside the border, written in the same jagged hand as Jess's log note. Almost home. Midnight came like a cold snap. I was half asleep in the bunk when something stirred me. The soft, unmistakable sound of glass rattling in the window panes. Wind? Maybe. I got up, moved to the deck, pulled the binoculars to my face with a shaking hand. The tower on Blood Mountain, a light in the window, flickering, pale orange, a candle. My breath caught. It didn't move like flame. It pulsed slow and steady like a heartbeat. I counted, once every 3 seconds. I didn't wait for the second beat. I turned, went inside, locked the door, shut off every light, and I waited. For the first time since I'd arrived, I truly understood what the rules were. They weren't guidelines. They weren't superstition. They were warnings. And I'd broken nearly every single one. Around 2:22 a.m., the knocking came again. Not on the front door this time. On the window by my bunk. Just one knock. Soft. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then came the whisper from just beyond the glass. It's cold out here. Let me in. It was Jess, but her voice wasn't slowed anymore. It was perfect, crisp, unnatural, like someone had finally learned how to mimic her exactly. I didn't answer. And then I made the mistake of glancing at the camera monitor, just once for a fraction of a second. There was something at the window, tall, wrong. Its face was too long, eyes too far apart, mouth hanging open. Its hand, if you could call it that, rested on the glass. Long fingers, too many joints. It smiled, and then the screen went black. The knocking stopped. The candlelight in the tower vanished an hour later. I sat in the dark until dawn, rifle on my lap, too afraid to blink. When the sun rose, the station felt hollow, like something had used the night to crawl a little deeper inside the walls. I checked the map again. Another red zone had appeared, right around the station. I didn't leave the station for 3 days. I barely ate. Barely slept. Every night, the knocking returned. Different windows, different rhythms, sometimes gentle, like fingertips on a piano, sometimes thunderous, angry, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always when I was at my weakest. I followed rule number 7. I didn't answer, I didn't look, but I heard it whisper. Sometimes Jess's voice, sometimes Owen's. Once, I swear to God, it used mine. On the 4th day, the generator died. No power, no lights, no cameras. Just a cold, creeping silence and the knowledge that the station, my last bastion of safety, was no longer protected. And worse, when I checked the trail map. The red zone had expanded again. The ink spread like a bruise. This time, the words written inside it weren't a warning. They were a challenge. Run. I considered abandoning post, but something gnawed at me, a pressure deep in my bones, like leaving would be worse than staying. Instead, I made a plan. The next red zone to the west hadn't shifted in 2 weeks. If I could make it to the fireline tower near Dodd Ridge, maybe I could radio another station from there. Maybe Owen. Maybe someone. I packed light, rifle, flashlight, trail rations, the emergency flare, and I left just before dusk. The woods felt wrong. Quieter than they should have been, but not the same dead silence I'd heard before. This was something else, a watchful silence, like the forest was listening. I walked fast, sticking to the narrow gravel path that cut between pine and rock. Every tree looked like it had eyes. Halfway to Dodd Ridge, the wind shifted, and I heard something moving. At first I thought it was an animal, deer maybe. Then it stepped on gravel, too heavy, too precise. I froze, waited, branches rustled, leaves parted, and then I saw it. 30 feet to my left, standing just beyond the trees, a man, or something shaped like one, unmoving, tall, wrapped in dark ragged cloth like old bark and skin fused together. His arms were too long, his head tilted in a twitching, unnatural arc. No face, just a smooth, pale stretch where features should be. And when I locked eyes with it, or what should have been its eyes, the woods went silent. Rule number 2. If the woods go unnaturally silent, make no noise and hide. He is near. I backed away, slowly, quiet as possible. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The creature tilted its head, sniffed the air, then vanished between 2 trees like mist sucked into a vacuum. I didn't run, not yet, but I started moving faster. Every step louder than the last. The silence followed me. I reached Dodd Ridge after nightfall. The tower was intact, barely. Rusted stairs, broken window panes, a door hanging off one hinge, but it was shelter. I climbed the steps 2 at a time. Inside, I found the emergency radio. Dead. Of course. But there was something worse. A familiar trail map pinned to the wall, and on it, in the same bleeding red ink, a new zone had been drawn, covering everything between the station and here. And now this tower was inside it. Scrawled in the corner, "No one leaves the hunting ground." The first sound came around 12:47 a.m., something scraping metal below, like claws or nails dragging across the stairwell. Then a single measured knock against the tower's door. Knock. A pause. Knock. Another pause. Knock. This time the door creaked open a few inches, and from the dark below something whispered my name, not shouted, not spoken, just placed in my head. I didn't respond. Instead, I reached for the flare gun, loaded it, took aim at the stairwell. Something moved, fast. Black tendrils slithered across the floor. A hand, no, a limb, reached up the last few stairs. Then I fired. The flare shot into the dark, bathing the tower in red light. The creature screamed, not with pain, with anger. It reeled back, just for a second. That was enough. I slammed the hatch shut, barricaded it with the desk, sat with the rifle across my lap until the red light faded. The whispering never stopped. When dawn came, the whispering finally died. And outside the tower, pressed against the wood, burned in black, were 7 symbols I didn't recognize. Twisted interlocking shapes like claw marks fused with language. I didn't touch them, just packed my gear and left. I didn't go back to the ranger station. I went deeper. Somewhere past the red zones, because I think Owen's still out there. And if I'm right, he broke the rules long before I ever did. I walked for hours. No trails, no markers, just instinct, and the growing feeling that something out here wanted me off the path. The air was denser now. The trees were gnarled, older than the rest of the forest, covered in thick moss and something darker, like soot or rot. Some trunks had gashes in them, as if clawed open from the inside. The silence was different out here. It wasn't dead, it was pregnant, waiting. Just before sunset, I stumbled onto something man-made, a crumbling wooden post, half buried in vines. The words carved into it barely legible. Station 0, quarantine shelter. I froze. Station 0? There was no mention of that on any official maps. No trail logs, not even a damn whisper during orientation. But someone had built it, and it looked old. The shelter was tucked into a rock hollow beneath a split ridgeline, almost invisible unless you were right on top of it, camouflaged by decades of overgrowth and decay. It was a squat, concrete structure. No windows, just a rusted door with deep scratches on the outside, like something had tried to get in or out. I pushed the door open slowly. The hinges screamed in protest. Inside, the air was stale and cold, the kind of cold that feels intentional, like it's hiding something beneath it. But someone had been living here, recently. Blankets, water bottles, a battered pack. And on the far wall, lit by a dying lantern, was a corkboard covered in pinned photos, handwritten notes, and a massive hand-drawn map. Red zones everywhere. And in the middle, scrawled in heavy black ink, they weren't always monsters. There were notes everywhere. Pages torn from logbooks, old ranger manuals, scraps of paper and bark. Some were in Owen's handwriting, others in different, older hands. Rule 1 was added after the Bach incident. 2 rangers followed the music. Only one came back, not alone. Rule 2, he hunts sound. Silence is his bait. Do not cough. The tower draws them in. The candle isn't for us, it's for them. They learn voices. They learn faces. One note was pinned dead center with a knife. It looked fresher than the rest. It just said, "Mason, if you're reading this, turn around slowly." My blood turned to ice. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I turned, slowly. Nothing was there, just the open door and the dark woods beyond. But something had changed. The silence was back. I stayed in Station 0 overnight. The whispering came again around 1:50 a.m. Not outside, inside, a soft voice, familiar. I didn't know what I was doing. The first time I broke a rule. It was Owen. He wasn't in the room, but I knew it was him. His voice carried a weight behind it, a rawness, like something old was wearing it like a second skin. The thing in the woods, it doesn't kill everyone who breaks the rules. Sometimes it recruits. A soft creak, boards shifting. I aimed the rifle toward the door. Then the voice came again, just behind me. Some of us become the next rules. I fired. The flash lit up the shelter, and in that half-second, I saw a figure crouched in the far corner. Pale face, too long, eyes black and reflective like wet obsidian. Then it was gone. At dawn, I checked the map again. One of the red zones had changed shape. It wasn't a circle anymore. It was moving, a long, snake-like pattern dragging west across the ridge, following me. Below it, someone had written, Rule 8 pending. I packed everything I could, because the old rules, they're starting to break. And I think I'm next. The deeper I go, the less the compass matters. North shifts, paths change. Sometimes I walk for hours and find myself back where I started, only the trees look older, and the birds don't make sounds anymore. Their beaks move, but no noise comes out. And sometimes I hear my own voice ahead of me on the trail, calling out, begging for help. I haven't slept since Station 0. Not really. The forest doesn't allow real sleep anymore. It lets you close your eyes and then shows you things. Memories that aren't yours, visions of places you've never been. Last night I saw Owen standing outside the Blood Mountain Tower, staring up at the candlelight. He was whispering something into a handheld mirror. Over and over, I am still myself, I am still myself, I am still myself. Then the mirror cracked, and his face changed. It became mine. I've stopped marking time in hours. The sunrise is sure, but sometimes it's east, sometimes it's straight overhead at dawn, and sometimes it just doesn't rise at all. The rules are bleeding, literally. The printed version in my pocket, laminated and typed, is soaked at the bottom. Faint reddish stains. The paper smells like iron, like blood. Rule number 3 is half erased now, the one about the radio. Just a few letters left. Odu, no, voice, don't swear. Midway through the hike today, I passed a ranger. Full uniform, clean, smiling, didn't say anything. He nodded at me, then stepped off the trail and disappeared into a tree that wasn't wide enough to hold him. I didn't follow, but as he passed, I saw his name tag, Mason. I found another shelter just before sunset, not on any map. This one was mostly collapsed, but there was a single intact wall still standing, and on it, painted in what I pray was red paint, were the final 2 lines of a set I've come to recognize, the full list. But these weren't on mine. Rule 8, if you begin to forget your name, write it down. It's how they get in. Rule 9, there is no Rule 9. That space is for you. Pray it stays blank. The words below Rule 9 were scratched violently. Claw marks, or tools, or teeth. The space beneath it was still wet, like something had just been written and then erased. That night, I heard a new voice outside the tent. Not a whisper, a full, confident tone. It was me. Open the tent, Mason. I'm you. You're confused. I can explain all of this. I stayed still. Come on, you've been lost for days. You're not built for this. I am. That's why they chose me. I couldn't help it. I asked, who are you? It answered, the one who made it out. Silence. then a single knock on the fabric of the tent wall, soft, deliberate, then another. Knock, knock, knock. 2:42 a.m., right inside the danger window. Rule 7. Don't look. Don't answer. I held the flare gun tight to my chest and whispered the only thing I could remember from Owen's notes. Some of us become the next rules. Dawn came without color. Everything gray, like the forest was covered in ash. But I was still alive. The rules may be unraveling, but they still mean something. They recognize obedience. Or maybe they play with it. I hiked east. Not sure why. Instinct, maybe? And that's when I found it. A clearing I'd never seen. Ringed by trees bent inward like they were watching. In the center, a fire pit, fresh ashes, and beside it, a mirror, old, cracked, hung from a tree branch like an ornament. I stepped toward it. My reflection looked back, but it didn't blink when I did. The closer I got to Blood Mountain, the less the forest looked like itself. The leaves didn't move with the wind anymore. They watched. Bird calls played on repeat. Not from real birds, just sound, like it had been recorded and looped wrong. Sometimes the caw of a crow played backwards. I stopped hearing my own footsteps around midday. Not quieter. Gone. Like the woods had stopped acknowledging me. Blood Mountain looked like a scar from a distance. Its slopes jutted up like cracked ribs, a single black tooth of a tower waiting at the peak. The closer I got, the darker the day became. Even though my watch said noon. The sun refused to follow. The tower looked just like it had in my dreams, not old and ruined like the others. Clean. Tall. Waiting. The door at its base stood open. A single spiral staircase wound upward, impossibly long, more steps than the height should allow. And in the top window, flickering gently, the candle. Rule 5. If you see a single candlelight in the window at midnight, return to the station and wait for it to go out. But I wasn't going back. Not this time. I climbed the steps, one floor, then another, then another. Each level should have brought me closer to the flame, but it never did. The candle stayed distant, like I was stuck in a loop. The walls began to change. The higher I climbed, the more wrong they became. Photos started appearing, first in frames, then pinned with knives. Each one was of a ranger, always alone, always staring into the camera with a blank expression. One of them was Owen. One of them was me, but younger, smiling. At the 7th floor, the stairs ended. No door. Just a mirror mounted on the wall. Old, tall, splintered at the edges. My reflection didn't match me. It was wearing my uniform, sure, same pack, same face, but its eyes were wrong. Not scared, smiling. And then it spoke. You broke more than one rule, Mason. I hadn't. Right? But then it said, you followed the music, remember? First week on the trail, you listened. You answered the wrong voice on the radio, twice. And you looked at the cameras during the knocking. Each sentence hit like a nail driven into memory. And I remembered. Not all at once, but I remembered. I had broken the rules. Not just now, in every loop. Every time I started the job, I promised myself I'd be careful, follow the rules, protect the trail. And every time, the ridge showed me something I couldn't resist. A whisper, a candle, a missing hiker that sounded like my sister. And every time, I became the thing someone else was warned about. The mirror faded. The wall behind it opened. I stepped into the top floor of the tower. No walls, just open night sky and the single candle in the center of the room. It was floating, flickering without fuel. And behind it, seated on a broken wooden chair, was Owen, or what was left of him. He looked human, mostly, but something had stretched him thin. His skin was too tight, his limbs too long, his smile too wide. He opened his mouth, but the voice that came out was mine. The ridge doesn't punish, Mason, it repurposes. We broke the rules, we became new ones. You ever wonder why there are 7? Why they don't stop it? Just contain it? He stood, candlelight dancing across his skin like oil, because we wrote them. And when you finish your rule, someone will write yours. Then the candle blew out, not from wind, from breath, mine. I woke outside the tower. Dawn had come, no candle in the window, no door to the tower anymore, just stone, as if it was never open. In my pocket was a folded slip of paper, new, clean. It read, Rule 9, if you see yourself on the trail, don't speak, don't move, don't blink, it's wearing your name now. And below it, freshly added, Rule 10. There was no 10, not yet. But I think I know what's coming. The forest isn't pretending anymore. The ground hums under my boots, like something enormous is breathing just beneath the soil. The trees twitch toward movement. Their branches bend not with the wind, but toward sound. And last night, the moon rose black. No light, no stars, just that dark gaping hole in the sky where the moon used to be. A perfect circle. Watching. I passed a trailhead sign this morning, newly posted, fresh wood. The board had a copy of the rules nailed to it. Same list I'd first been handed in the ranger station. Only now there were 10. And Rule 10 was no longer blank. Rule 10, if you start to forget which one you are, ask them what year it is. If they hesitate, run. The paper was signed at the bottom in thick red marker. Ranger Mason Dale. My name, my handwriting. I never wrote it, did I? I made it back to the station by mid-afternoon. It looked abandoned. The door was open, lights flickering. Inside, dust clung to the air like ash, and a new map had been pinned to the wall. It wasn't the forest, it was the station itself. Every room outlined, each one marked with different symbols, scratches, blood, names. My name was on the bunkroom door. Inside I found a ranger uniform laid neatly across the bed. The name tag read, Dale. And on the pillow, folded with impossible care, was a letter, sealed with black wax. A symbol I didn't recognize, a circle with 7 teeth. I opened it. The handwriting was clean, mechanical, but deeply wrong. To the next one, you've made it further than most. This is where the trail ends. This is where the mirror cracks. You are not the first Mason Dale. You will not be the last. The ridge is not a place. It is a question. And the rules are our only answers. You were never meant to follow them forever. You were meant to become one. When you hear your own voice behind you, do not look. If it speaks your memories, do not answer. If it cries, it is lying. You are not broken, you are being copied. The radio chirped, one short buzz followed by static. Then, this is Ranger Dale checking in, Northwest Sector clear, returning to base. My own voice. I reached for the receiver, but froze. Rule 3. If you get a call on the radio from a voice you don't recognize, don't answer it. But this one I did recognize. It was me. I didn't answer, but the voice came again. Mason, you there? It's me. I know what you saw. The candle, the mirror. It's okay now. You made it back. We can fix this. You just need to come outside. My hands were shaking. Then came the knock at the front door. 3 times. Soft, polite. 2:47 a.m. I didn't move. I shut off the lights. Backed into the corner. Rifle ready. I watched the security monitor even though I shouldn't. Rule 7. But I had to know. The camera flickered to life. The figure at the door was tall, thin, wearing my uniform. It had my face, but not my eyes. Its eyes were too wide, too still. It smiled when it saw the camera was on, and it waved. Then it opened its mouth. No sound came out, but I heard it anyway. You're tired, Mason. You've done your part. Come rest. We'll carry the rules from here. There's another you on the way. The screen went black. All of them did. Then a voice behind me, so close I could feel the breath on my neck. It's almost time to write your rule. I turned. No one was there. Just a mirror leaning against the wall. And, in it, 2 reflections. One blinking, one not. You know when something's over, not by silence but by familiarity. When the nightmare stops surprising you, it means it's finished shaping you. It means you're part of it now. I left the ranger station just after 3 a.m. The knock came again. Then a voice, my own, whispered through the walls. You're not the first Mason Dale. You're the one that worked. That broke something in me. Not fear, not even anger, just a click, like a piece sliding into place. I wasn't running anymore. The trail outside had changed, same path, same trees, but the trees were mirrors, bent bark, wet and reflective, my face everywhere, watching, smiling back at me when I wasn't. Ahead, someone was waiting in the clearing, wearing my uniform, but wrong. Not just in the face, in the stance. Relaxed, confident, like it had never been afraid of anything in these woods. I raised my rifle. It didn't flinch. You can shoot if it helps you feel real, it said. But I've been you longer than you have. The ridge is an old place, Mason. Older than trails, older than trees. It doesn't kill rangers, it copies them. We're how it learns to wear a face. It stepped forward. I fired. The bullet went straight through. No blood. No reaction, just a smile. See, you're already fading. I looked down. My hands were starting to blur at the edges, like heat haze, like static. I wasn't breathing hard anymore. I wasn't breathing at all. I turned and ran, not because I thought I could win, because I remembered Rule 8. If you begin to forget your name, write it down. It's how they get in. I still had the notebook, the one from Station 0. I stopped at a tree and scratched my name into the bark, deep, over and over. Mason Dale, Mason Dale Mason, but the letters twisted. The bark bent, and my hand wrote something else. Ranger 11, if you find this name carved in bark, do not say it aloud. It remembers who it was. The tree pulsed like a heartbeat. I kept walking until I reached the same clearing I saw in a dream weeks ago. The candle from Blood Mountain was there, flickering in midair. Only this time 7 figures stood around it, all of them in ranger uniforms, all of them with my face, some older, some younger. One was crying, one had no eyes. They turned to me as one and said, "What will your rule be?" I closed my eyes. I thought of Owen. I thought of the first time I read the rules, laughing at how ridiculous they seemed, and I realized something. The ridge doesn't make the rules. We do. We leave them behind like footprints, like tombstones. They're the only way we say, "I was here." I saw it too. I opened my eyes and I spoke. Rule 11, if you ever hear your own voice asking you to follow, don't. It's not you. Not anymore. The candle flared. So did the figures, and then they vanished. I woke up in a hospital in northern Georgia. 3 ribs broken, dehydrated, covered in scratches. I'd been missing for 13 days. They found me wandering near the edge of the trail, repeating my name over and over again. They said I was lucky to be alive. They don't know the truth. I still dream of the ridge, of the mirror trees, of the tower, of myself, watching from just beyond the clearing. I know it's not over, but I wrote a new rule, and someone, somewhere will read it. Maybe they'll listen, maybe they won't, but they'll know that I was real, and I was afraid, and I fought it anyway.